in Boston, Giriraj Swami followed him to India, traveled with him, learned from him, and personally served him. Since then, Giriraj Swami has toured extensively throughout India and many other countries, presenting knowledge of Krishna. He has taught at the Vaishnava Institute for Higher Education in Vrindavan and often facilitates japa retreats and workshops. He founded the Bhaktivedanta Hospice and the Institute of Palliative Care in Vrindavan, India, where he also led the development of the Kirtan Ashram for women. Now based in Southern California, Giriraj Swami is the author of Watering the Seed with teachings from His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Many Moons, Reflections on Departed Vaishnavas, and Life's Final Exam, Death and Dying in the Vedic Tradition, as well as many articles in the Back to Godhead magazine and other publications. He's working on several more books about his search for a spiritual master and his early days in the Boston Temple, his travels with Srila Prabhupada in India from 1970 to 1972, and of course his upcoming book on Srila Prabhupada's monumental efforts in Bombay. So we'll start with this video, which is very nice at the Bhaktivedanta Hospice. I think it's really nice to see what was created over there and what they're doing. And then of course, Giriraj Swami will give us a presentation on the hospice.
Dying, leaving this world. And that's a very sacred part of life in all great spiritual traditions.
The whole hospice movement began because there are so many people dying, mostly in pain, agony, frustration, worry and fear.
Hospice is the specialized care of a dying patient as well as the family members and loved ones.
So hospice is a place which provides them complete pain relief, complete care, complete symptom control in the end of life. It also trains the family member how to deal with these kind of patients, how to take care of these kind of patients.
And really here, more than the medicine, it's the emotional, the psychological, the philosophical, and the sheer personal relationship.
Say traditionally a Christian would like to die in a very holy place of Christianity, or a Muslim will like to leave his body in places like Mecca and Medina and maybe other holy places. So we chose Vrindavan because the religious scriptures explain us that whoever will leave their body in the holy land of Vrindavan, they will go back to the kingdom of God.
Some years ago, a very renowned artist from South Africa, Archie Dasi, or Eileen Lipkin, came to Vrindavan to leave her body, but she found that there was no proper medical facility.
So we built a structure in Vrindavan, Mathura district, of 40,000 square feet, having 23 beds. Anybody who is poor or rich or any walk of life, if he has a terminal disease, he can get registered and then get admitted.
We have 3 floors. The ground floor is administrative floor. We have a well-equipped pharmacy which stores all the medications. On the first floor we have 7 personal deluxe rooms. On the second floor we have 6 rooms. Each room can accommodate 3 persons. And there is a big, nice, spacious garden at the back of the hospice.
The thought that has gone into making each room comfortable for the patient and not like a hospital feeling, more like an apartment feeling, and how they've left space for even wheeling the entire bed into the toilet. You know, I felt the attention to these little details to make it a very nice stay for the last days of your life.
I worked on the project for 7 years of the 10 years that it took to go from a thought. I took 2 years of that time to write the curriculum for the nurses here. And now for the first time since its opening in August of this past year, I'm here teaching to the staff and also the volunteers.
The Bhaktivedanta Hospice is unique in that it focuses on the consciousness of the people who are leaving their bodies.
So when we think about everything, the mind, the soul and the body, the concept of spiritual care has to come in.
Death can be a terrifying, frightening journey into the unknown. We want to help people rise above the gloom and darkness and fear associated with death.
Not in a sectarian way, but trying to aim at the very essence of spirituality. We give people an understanding of the inner wealth, the inner treasures of who they are.
This boy is 24 years old and he has a tumor all over his spine and he can't walk and he's dying. I think we who are healthy can't really understand this time of life when someone knows that they're at the end of their life. And when I sit with this boy who's 24, knowing that this is the end of his life, I can't help cure the tumor in his back, but I know that I can touch him deeply and perhaps make this time more comfortable for him.
80% of people prefer to die at their own place. So our team of doctors and nurses visit their homes.
They have almost 100 patients right now that are on home hospice care, even in remote villages. And they have teams that travel to the various villages and they teach the family members how to do the physical care. They give emotional and mental care.
Home care is it's like more touching to the heart because we are going to their home all the way, they give them free care. So that is, they also feel very nice that someone has come to their homes and more touching to the heart. There are people who are very, very poor. So generally we offer our free services to these patients. We go to their homes, we offer them free home care. If they are poor, we arrange for their medications and everything. Bhaktivedanta Hospice is unique because it focuses to give the complete care to the patient regardless of whether they are having money or not.
Lot of resource development takes place as an essential aspect of hospice service. So lot of compassion, lot of care, a lot of physical support, a lot of financial support by fundraising. All these are provided.
I have the comfort that money is not wasted. It is utilized in the best way. And at the same time, it is done with the attitude, to try to really help. You go to the last mile. That's something which is really convincing.
There's a man dying here at the Bhaktivedanta Hospice who only has his son. He lost his wife when his son was 2 years old. Now his son is 22 and he's losing his only parent.
1 महीने इन्होंने कुछ नहीं खाया था। 3 बार अटैक पड़ चुके हैं, 3 बार मरते बच गए। यहाँ मेडिसिन और डॉक्टर साहब भी कर रहे हैं, खाना पीना भी डॉक्टर साहब।
He's telling that when he was 2 years old, his mom died, but his father was very caring. He didn't remarry any other girl, and he took care of him. There is no one to take care of him, and he feels very helpless.
Sometimes you get very attached to a patient. You get very attached to family members. We go into the medical field mostly to get people better. And with this, every patient you have passes away.
Sometimes I even forget my status of being a physician or a doctor, and I just go forward and behave as a friend, as a family member.
We have seen people smiling with year-to-year smile just before 7 days of death. It's all because when spirituality nourishes one person, all the painful experiences of life disappear.
Finally, we take him to the process where he comes to accept that yes, I have this disease and I have this much of time left with me. So let me do something positive. Let me do something which is going to help my family, which is going to help me.
Everyone has to die sometime or the other. But if you are prepared and are in a very good company, in the right location, doing the right thing, death can be a pleasant death instead of something which becomes unpleasant.
It can be a very beautiful transition from the few experiences I've had taking care of dying patients, and to just be there, to see that process from denial to acceptance, to be ready to go, is very enlivening.
People should have the opportunity to leave this world with dignity, in an atmosphere where death is not the horrible end of everything, but where we could actually experience how in dying the doors to eternal life are opening for us.
So please join me in welcoming His Holiness Giriraj Swami.
Hare Krishna. I have heard that for many patients, the word hospice is dreaded because they feel that they're giving up the fight to survive and they are succumbing to death. But for devotees who understand that they are not the body, but they are the soul within the body. And as stated in the Gita, Nanyate Anyamane Sarire, that when the body dies, the soul does not die. For them, death takes on a different meaning, and consequently hospice takes on a different meaning. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yam Yam Bhakti Smaram Bhavam, that in whatever state one leaves the body, one attains to that position. And if one leaves the body thinking of Krishna, then he will go to Krishna. And that is our goal, the goal of life, and it's the goal in hospice care. Of course, remembering Krishna at the time of death may not be so easy, but we practice. In fact, there's a verse that says, whatever sadhana and bhajan you have done, very good, but it will all be tested at the time of death. So we practice remembering Krishna now, so ultimately we can remember him at the time of death. And it is like the final exam in a regular course. One attends classes, one does assignments, one takes pop quizzes, midterms. But ultimately, you have to pass the final exam in order to graduate. So for us, passing the final exam means remembering Krishna at the time of death, and graduating means not having to come back into the material world. Sometimes people raise the question of overpopulation. And Srila Prabhupada said the reason there's overpopulation is because people are supposed to be graduating, passing out of the school. But too many of them are flunking. They have to come back and repeat. So there's overpopulation. So it was mentioned briefly in the video about my disciple Archavigraha Devi Dasi, and she was really the inspiration behind the hospice. She was a renowned artist in South Africa, and so she met devotees and became very serious about Krishna consciousness. And she thought to combine her artwork with her spiritual life. So she came to Vrindavan, and she bought some land. It was a very remarkable thing to do at that time. She bought some land and built a house on it. And she kept the ground floor for herself and had, whatever she needed to live, and a studio for her artwork. And she was kind enough to build another floor upstairs for me, for when I would visit. And she was diagnosed with cancer. She was given 6 months to live, although in the end she lived for 3 years. And she really loved Vrindavan. And devotees would come and spend time with her. Many senior devotees would spend time in Vrindavan then. And one thing we used to do, of course, kirtan, we'd always do kirtan. But one thing we used to do is read dramas. Specifically, Yadagda Madhava and Lalita Madhava by Srila Rupa Goswami. And different ones of us would take different parts in the dramatic reading. So, Tamal Krishna Goswami, Shivaram Swami, Govinda Maharaj, who lived next door, they would come and they would take part in these readings. And she wanted that others should have the same opportunity that she had to leave her body in Vrindavan. And it was practically her dying wish that we should make she didn't use the term hospice. She called it a Back to Godhead clinic. So she wanted that we should make a Back to Godhead clinic so people could have the same opportunity she had to leave their bodies in Vrindavan. But when she left, the medical care in Vrindavan was very poor, very meager. Once she needed an IV, and there was no local person even to do her an IV, but fortunately, Tamal Krishna Goswami's disciple, Kirti Devi Dasi, who was a nurse. She was in Vrindavan at that time, so she did the IV for Mother Archit Vigraha. But she made that request, and so we fulfilled it, with the help of many devotees. His Holiness Radhanath Swami and devotees from Bhaktivedanta Hospital helped a lot and still are helping a lot. But another thing about hospice care, which is also mentioned in the video, is that a lot of it is administered at home. And Sangeeta Devi Dasi, who was in the video and who wrote a book called The Final Journey, so she has formed an organization called Vaishnava's Care. And the idea of Vaishnava's Care is to provide hospice care to people wherever they are, primarily in North America, because she's in North America, but in principle, anywhere and everywhere. She requested, although it hasn't been implemented so much, but she requested that every temple should have a room set aside for devotees leaving their bodies. It doesn't have to be dedicated exclusively for that purpose, but it should be there when the need arises. And she has Vaishnava's Care team. She came here to Houston, and when one of the devotees was leaving her body, and helped a lot. And she established a Vaishnava's Care team here in Houston to minister to devotees who are leaving their bodies. But fortunately or unfortunately, there aren't that many leaving their bodies here. But the team expanded their portfolio to include visiting devotees who are still sick in the hospital, or providing prasad to sick devotees, and helping in different ways like that. So it's really quite an enlivening service. There is one nurse who came from Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Mumbai to Bhaktivedanta Hospice in Vrindavan, and she couldn't adjust. She wanted to see the patients get better, and here all the patients were dying, and she just found it very discouraging. She went back. But for many of us, it's quite encouraging to help someone, leave the body in Krishna consciousness, with the hope or the expectation that they won't have to come back and take birth in the material world, but they'll go back home, back to Godhead. And I have met many, well, not many, but some people who have appreciated that being with someone leaving the body is a very sacred time. I'm friends with a Jewish rabbi in Santa Barbara, and once we were speaking and he said, "This might surprise you, but I find that when I go to minister to dying congregants, I enter a very sacred space." And it's a very deep and meaningful experience. And I said, I'm not surprised to hear that. I also have the same experience. But to administer care, as they say, you have to care for the caregivers. To administer care in the spiritual line, especially, we should be strong spiritually. And especially by chanting the holy names for initiated devotees, and I see a lot of initiated devotees here, and maybe there are some of you on the way to being initiated. We have our chanting beads, and we chant minimum 16 rounds, and as far as possible, those should be done early in the morning at a stretch with other serious chanters, it's Tulsi Devi in front of the deities. And that's like our spiritual nourishment. That gives us spiritual strength. And we need that spiritual strength to care for others and to be resilient. Now, one element of hospice care, which was not mentioned specifically in the video, is called Respite Care, R-E-S-P-I-T-E. And in respite care, a patient who is living at home and being cared for by family members and loved ones at home comes to the hospice facility for a week or two to give a break to the family members who've been caring for the person at home. So they also, can take care of themselves. And so that's another category of hospice care. But it's really wonderful. I've read little bits here and there about death and dying and about hospice care, and there was a study, I think, performed by a couple of doctors in Massachusetts. But anyway, so there are a lot of doctors who don't like to talk about death with their patients. It's a very touchy subject and they don't want to bring it up. And maybe from their side, they don't want to admit that they can't cure the patient. And maybe they don't know how to bring it up to the patient or the patient's loved ones. But this study found that, ironically, patients who speak openly about death, terminal patients who speak openly about death, live longer than the ones who don't get the chance to speak about it. It's sort of just all swept under the rug or whatever. So if we can, and again, patients are of different degrees of spiritual development, but if we can speak about death, it would be good. There was a film, a documentary film, that showed in Santa Barbara, just coincidentally, around the corner from my chiropractor, and coincidentally the film showed, like right after my chiropractor's appointment. And the film was called The Nurse with the Purple Hair. And it came about in an unusual way. The man who made the film, I think Sean Cunningham, he is a Hollywood filmmaker who specialized in horror films. And there was some conference, and not exactly a conference, like a convention. There's a convention, and he was there. And somehow the nurse with the purple hair, although it's not really purple, but somehow she was assigned to assist him. So he asked her, what do you do for your work? So she said, I'm a hospice nurse. Do you have a problem with that? And no, I don't have a problem with that. And he actually took a liking to her, and he decided to make a documentary film about her and about hospice care in general. And so I went to that film show from my chiropractor's office, and Sean Cunningham, the producer, director, and Lesotho, I forget her first name, the nurse, they were there in person. And there were a lot of testimonials from people about how, caregivers, how much they got out of caring for the terminal patients. And then after the film show, I met her and the producer in the lobby, showed her the book, Life's Final Exam, told her about the hospice in Vrindavan. And she was very happy about it. So it's a very rewarding and very encouraging field if you have the stomach for it. Hare Krishna. So, do any of you have any comments or questions? Oh, Lily today. I saw you in the movie. Oh, yes. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, many times in the hospitals, we are faced with a situation where a person is dying, and there are several physicians on the case, and everything is pointing towards essentially futile medical care. And essentially, no one is willing to bring, from a physician perspective, this whole topic of let the patient go. It's time, let us all stop whatever we're doing because it's futile care. And from personal experience, because I'm a surgeon and I'm a consultant, and I'm not the person in charge of the whole care of the patient, and many times there'll be 3 or 4 extra physicians who are much senior to me in status in different specialties, and many times I'll refuse to do a procedure on them, or I'll say, you know what, it's time to just let the patient go. But it is met with a lot of negative energy. Oh, the family wants everything done, even though the patient is not willing to, even though the patient cannot make the decision. So my question to you is, from a Krishna conscious standpoint, how aggressive can we get in letting the patient go? Because we know from all medical perspective, the patient's time is up, and 4 people are against you, and you're 1 against 4 in the system. And then you have this whole gamut of family members who want everything done. So I just thought, what would your thoughts be, Maharaj, if you can share some light on that?
Well, my first thought is, what are we going to do for the consciousness of the patient? I mean, okay, the patient is going to die and there's not much point in medical interventions. It's just a waste of time and energy and money. But that's sort of negative. But what are we going to do in a positive way? Now, I don't know how many people can understand what I'm going to say, but the real thing is to help the person remember God at the time of death. And this is a principle that goes beyond the Vedic tradition. It's in every tradition. I would preach in Pakistan, and while I was there, I came across a book called The 99 Names of Allah. Like in the Hindu tradition, you have the 1,000 Names of Vishnu. And in the book, The 99 Names of Allah, it was written that the best thing that the family members and loved one can do for someone who's leaving the body is to chant the names of God. Encourage the person to chant, but at the very end, they can't chant, but at least chant for them so they can hear it. So if we can add this, I don't know if it's against the rules to discuss spiritual or religious topics, but that's what I would say. What do you believe is the goal of the person who's leaving the body? What's the best destination that the soul can reach after leaving the body? And what can we do to facilitate that? And it should come to chanting God's name in whatever tradition it is. Yes, Harivala Prabhu.
Contact my oceans all goes to Gurudev Prabhupada. Regarding Prabhu's question is very valid and is often encountered. The real solution for this problem is people meet once in a year with the family on Thanksgiving Day. What they do is they eat and drink, watch the football game or whatever game, but nobody sits around and talks about the problems, especially the problems of the elderly. And they have to discuss and decide this kind of problems. Before people get sick, the families have to decide, or the person who is elderly, if something happens to me, I want it to be taken care of this way. Or I want everything done, or I don't want anything done, I don't want to suffer too much, let me go. And there's a form that they can certify. There's documents to he can sign, the person can sign, so that the decision would have been made ahead of time before they get into this problem. So this is what should be done in every family. Unfortunately, there is no leadership in the country, even in the administrative leaderships. They do not stress this problem. And so that millions of dollars are wasted in your case of Respite Care. I see it every day. And of course, what we have to do, even in that situation, I think we had to come down from our high state and come down, talk to the family very gently. This is the situation. You all have to discuss and make a decision so that it's not only prolonging life, but also prolonging suffering for him. And as Maharaj has said, and make the environment God conscious. So I always tell them the people are assembled there. Sometimes they don't even talk to the patient, or they don't even look at the patient. They're either watching TV or chit-chatting among themselves. So in that situation, what I tell them is put a music, spiritual music, so that at least the patient can listen to that. So these are the things we can do, but I think the problem is a big problem, and this has to be addressed by the leaders of the country and leaders of the society. And even the individual families have to make this decision. Hare Krishna.
In Santa Barbara had the second hospice in the country, and there's a network of different organizations who engage in end-of-life care. And so they always emphasize this document, I think it's called the 5 Wishes, in which well in advance, or as long as possible, people express their wishes, what they want at the end. So the family members aren't in an awkward position of trying to imagine or figure out or hope that they're doing what their loved one would want.
So I think we're out of time. His Holiness Giriraj Swami will be back at his book table for a few minutes. We have a short break, but he's available for more questions there. And also, all his books are available there. I think take the time to, the Watering the Seed, Many Moons, but also Life's Final Exam, Death and Dying from a Vedic Tradition. And also I'm going to put up a slide in a second. I actually visited the hospice in India when I was there with the inspiration from my Guru Maharaj. My father has visited, I think many of you in the audience have visited, but the work they do is amazing. And so I want to just put up a slide in a second, which will give you how to donate to them. And it's a tax-deductible contribution. You mail it to an address in the US, but if you need any further information, you can reach out to me or His Holiness Giriraj Swami. But thank you very much.
Maybe you can come over. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.